Welcome to Fiery Discourse, your podcast and media featuring dragonesses, female dinosaurs, and other similar saurians and scalies. I'm your host, Ludmillanon, and with me are my co-hosts, Angron, Mathmachine, Jordan, Stryker, and our special guest today is Sharvoun. Today is our 116th episode, and we're discussing the 1997 Disney animated movie Hercules. So, let's get things started.
This Fiery Discourse thing. You're sitting around at your computer on this site, Discord, right? Not the Dragonesses. And you're talking about female dragons, lizards, dinosaurs, the whole shebang. Am I hitting the nail on the target with that?
Basically, yeah, definitely.
That was my best Hades impression, also. And then along came Zeus. Hey ho, there's
that's how I thought you were going to start it.
Yeah.
I want to flip subversions a little bit. Anyways,
yeah,
Matt.
It's all good.
Yeah. Hades rule.
nice impression there. Matthew saying?
Welcome to the Hades show, also featuring some guy named Hercules.
Yep, that's probably going to be our take on this episode. So let's get things started with this. Whatever. Yeah,
it's Hercules, starring Hades and some other people, but who cares?
Good times.
Yeah, nice. So Hercules is really a character who needs no introduction. He's appeared in like thousands upon thousands of films, from the silent era to the peplum movies of the 1960s and that. However, this Disney take began shape in like 1992, when Disney originally wanted to do a version of the Odyssey. However, the plans eventually fell through, so they decided to make a movie based on another Greek hero, Hercules. Ron Clements and John Musker, who were the directors of Aladdin, basically they were shanghaied into doing this in order to get their pet project made. That pet project, by the way, was none other than Treasure Planet. And this movie definitely has a unique look for most Disney movies of the time because their production designer was Gerald Scarfe. He previously worked on movies such as Pink Floyd's The Wall and also did like celebrity caricatures and that. And you can definitely see it in the design of like the shapes of the characters, like the sharp angles and the curves and that. It's very, very different looking than something like, say, Beauty and the Beast or Aladdin or Sleeping Beauty or what have you. And I think that actually makes it stand out a lot more. Anyway, Sharvoun, you were saying?
I actually have to come. I will say that the unique design and unique perspective of the story is actually very helpful for the kind of story because of the themes of it's trying to portray. But we'll get to that when we get to that.
Yeah, you were saying, Angron? Sorry?
Yeah. So yeah, I know that eventually, when we actually got to a quote unquote Greek-inspired film, aka Atlantis, they ultimately had the challenge of not doing anything Greek-inspired, but instead doing stuff like Malaysia. But I feel this film was ultimately worth that risk.
Oh, easily. It easily was, because this definitely is one of the best of the Disney movies, at least in the time period. And it's interesting it wasn't received like that, and we'll get to why much later on the podcast. But basically, this movie is less to do with Greek mythology and more like Disney's version of like Superman, Rocky, and just like celebrity culture in general. And it's really a neat take on the genre. One thing I do want to note, because I am a big fan of it, that this movie is not at all accurate to Greek mythology. If you were to correct everything wrong with this movie, this episode would be 20 hours long, easily. Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, I remember when I was in high school, I took a Latin class, and one of the things that they would do every year is show this movie and have the students write down 10 things that they got wrong in the mythology. Everyone finished that in 5 minutes and then just watch the movie.
Yeah.
Nice. Your Latin class sounds awesome.
That is a good assignment. I will admit that. That's something I could probably do it before the movie even started, to come to think of it. First one being the title, that Hercules was his Roman name. His Greek name was Hercules, but that's
Hercules,
Hercules.
Yeah, right. Anyway, Angron, you were saying?
Yeah, to give you an idea, in this rendition, the Minotaur actually strangles Theseus instead of the other way around. So Yeah, accuracy ain't exactly top of our priorities list, in case you were wondering.
We might point out a couple of things wrong with it, but we're not going to go over like each and every small detail. But we will point out some of the big ones. Let's do it that way. Anyway, Sharvoun, you were saying?
And honestly, that was the point. That's what I was getting at with the different art style. This was meant to be more of a satire of celebrity culture using Greek mythology. It also sort of coincides with the theory that Greek mythologies were superheroes are basically modern day Greek myths, which makes sense since the directors are huge superhero fans. Imagine if they actually did an animated Superman.
Try telling that to China or Japan.
Yeah, definitely. Ooh, definitely, 100%. So basically, the movie itself begins in an abandoned museum of Greek statues with a narrator provided by Charlton Heston, which is a cameo that fits because let's not forget he was Ben-Hur. So that's something that definitely does fit. However, the Greek muses interrupt his narration, basically saying that he's making it sound like a tragedy and that they'll take things from there. And here's one thing I gotta say is that whoever thought of making the muses into a gospel group, that was a truly, truly inspired decision that definitely improves the movie tenfold. Like, without the muses, I feel like at least 50% of why this movie is so fun would be removed. The other 50% coming in a little while. But anyway, let's see. First, Sharvoun, you were saying?
And we get in the introduction of one of many movie betterers, Roz Ryan, playing the Hercules. Let's just say she makes any movie better, and in this case, even though she doesn't have a lot of time, she's base star.
Hey, she later played Bubby in Flapjack, so...
Dang, she did? That's awesome! She gets instant points because of that.
Also, believe it or not, I believe she also voices a Cake in Adventure Time, I believe it.
Yeah, she does.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Sold.
Yeah. I mean, that right there is really, really good casting right there. But getting back to this, what happens is the muses then say they are the goddess of music and stories with legends such as Hercules. Of course, we get the famous line. I'm not gonna imitate it because I don't want to get canceled. Okay, I'll just read it off. Honey, you mean Hercules. That's how I'm gonna say it.
You mean Hercules?
Thank you.
Hercules.
Nice.
Now, if you don't mind, I'm gonna get in the middle of deleting my social media accounts.
Nice. So we then get the first song, The Gospel of Truth, which gives the backstories of the Titans and how Zeus defeated them. Of course, this also led to the Along Came Zeus meme, which had like lightning destroying something, which is usually hilarious. However,
unless it's Frieza.
Yeah.
That's Thunderbolt.
Man, I love that meme, especially nowadays. And like, what really made that meme popular for me was the fact that they replaced Zeus's face with Godzilla, which
yeah, they did.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah, back to what we were talking about.
Yeah.
Yep.
Basically, the muses sing about how Zeus took control of Mount Olympus and became leader of all the gods. And I really like the style of animation being done in the Greek vase. That's really, really fun and so creative. The song basically ends for now as we zoom into a Greek plate of Mount Olympus to the real thing as we zoom up the mountain into the heavens. The title card appears as we then go to the gates to see the various gods and goddesses of Olympus. The fact that they all glow is a really, really fun touch in that. And again, their designs are pretty good. Some of them are kind of taken from Fantasia, more on that in a little bit, but definitely something that is interesting. We then cut to Hera, who is cooing over Hercules and makes a crib from out of a cloud. And she says, behave yourself, but we didn't get the second half of that line, which is, because I'm going to send snakes in your crib because your father cheated on me.
Oh, gosh.
Had to reference that. Sorry.
Also,
good times.
Also, early use of CG with the cloud morphing effect.
Oh, that's right.
This movie
I thought
did
that
a
was
lot
2D.
of it. Yeah, this movie definitely did a lot of that, and for the most part, it holds up really, really well. A lot better than some other movies of the time that tried to incorporate CGI with 2D. So for 97, it's pretty good. Yep. Zeus himself then appears, played by Rip Torn, and this is something that is just really ironic casting because Zeus in this movie is pretty much the complete opposite of what Rip Torn was like in real life. The guy was, let's just say a character and leave it at that. A very colorful character.
Yes.
Yep. But
Yeah.
Hercules then lifts his father up by one finger as Zeus notes how strong he is. Hermes shows up, gives Hera some flowers, and says that Orpheus himself helped pick them out. He then says he hasn't seen much love in one place as Narcissus discovered himself, which, okay, making Narcissus a god completely ruins the vibe of the original story, but whatever.
Yeah. Also, weird thought. I initially thought Zeus was voiced by frick, who is he? I know he played Sully from Monsters Inc. I keep forgetting.
John Goodman.
John Goodman. That's who it was.
All good. But basically, Hercules then plays with Zeus's lightning bolts, chewing on it before getting electrocuted. Zeus is blasé about this, saying, "No, he won't hurt himself." Obviously, because he knows he's going to throw them at the centaurs during the courtship ceremony later on that day.
Oh gosh.
In character.
Hercules then
Very
throws
much
the
so.
lightning bolt away, causing it to fly all over Mount Olympus before Athena swats it away. Zeus points out all of the gifts he has received from the other gods, which he probably got from intimidating them. And I also have to note, Neptune gave Zeus a lot of gifts. He could not give him the golden spatula because it's still stuck in the fry grease.
Nice.
Had
you
to mention
pulled
it.
the spatula from the grease.
Had to mention. Well, we got our SpongeBob reference, and not the only one, surprisingly, which we'll get to that later on. Hera asks about their gift as Zeus pulls some clouds together to create Pegasus, which he either could have given them Pegasus or Bubo the Mechanical Owl. Either one would have been awesome. Let's put it that way.
Nice.
Imagine if it was Rainbow Dash.
Oh gosh.
That too. That definitely would have also been awesome.
Mhm.
But
That would have made the movie
Hercules-
20% cooler.
120% cooler.
But yeah,
20% cooler.
yep. Hercules and Pegasus basically bump heads as they play with all of the gods and goddesses awing over this. Just then, Hades shows up, sarcastically talking about how adorable it is and saying that I haven't been this choked up since I got Muzaka caught in my throat. And here we get to the reason why this movie is so awesome.
Hold on, guys.
Hades himself.
I think I smell smoke. It's either the house is on fire or we've been introduced to the greatest thing of all time by Disney. Aside from their other things.
Yeah. Go ahead, Matt. You were saying?
I'm going to go into just a little bit of a tangent here. This is going to take a moment or two. So, one of the reasons, probably the reason that Hades is so good is because there's this kind of technique in animation where you fully sort of encapsulate an actor into a character. It's not. This used to be done when in the early days of Disney when they would fully record everything that they were doing, and then they would effectively not rotoscope, but mostly animate over what the actor was doing, particularly if they were the one that was performing the character. You don't see that much anymore in the modern age. There's basically three characters that are this sort of full immersion of the actor into the character, rather than just like, oh hey, I can replace the voice and it'll change the character, but you can still see the character. You could not have Ratigan from The Great Mouse Detective, you could not have Genie from Aladdin, and you could not have Hades from Hercules if you replace the actor, because the character fully is the actor. And here's the best part of this. Musker and Clements directed all three of those movies. They were masters of this technique.
Nice.
What absolute legends. Wow. I mean, for
Mind-
all of them, really to do that, that is something else, shows how
Mind-
talented they are with
I
that.
was about to reference Aladdin, but there we
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
Yep.
All three. I mean, that right there just shows how well they do. And with Treasure Planet as well, let's not forget. But
Definitely.
basically,
Not at all.
Hades himself, of course, as Matt just mentioned, is voiced by James Woods. What's interesting is who plays Hades rather, but who almost played Hades. It was almost Jack Nicholson, but he wanted a deal identical to the one he got for playing the Joker. which was $15 million upfront in cash and half of all of the merchandise profit. Disney, of course, said no. Then they thought of casting John Lithgow as Hades, which would have been very interesting, especially considering he would play Lord Farquaad just less than 5 years later after this movie. And basically, yeah, James Woods steals the entire movie from the very second he appears on screen. Like, he appears like maybe 4 minutes in. From this point on, it's the Hades movie. Anytime he's not on screen, the other characters should be saying, "Where's Hades?" He should be louder, angrier, and have access to a time machine. Let's do it that way.
Exactly.
Yeah. And James Woods loves playing Hades so much, he'll reprise the role anytime and any place, including video games such as Kingdom Hearts, theme park shows and attractions, commercials, and even toys. I mean, this guy loves playing Hades. He said this is the one role he will drop everything for and do it at any time. And if you're a voice actor and you're like that, kudos. Kudos to you, James Woods, for at least that. Not for other stuff you've done, but let's not go there. Anyway, Angron, you were saying?
Yeah, I 100% agree. Like, this is the guy who got freaking roasted by Auron in Kingdom Hearts 2. Like, good lordy. Like, there are many roles where where the actor fits it best, and honestly, here, this 100% works. The snide, the speedy, wit and all that. It definitely fits the tone and the overall vibe that he gives every time he's on screen. Like he can go from calm, suave, and overall charismatic to instantaneously hot-headed in a moment, and I love that a lot.
Yeah, definitely.
Anyway, Sharvoun?
Not only that, but also the animation on him is something to behold. And the interesting thing is, that was also kind of a struggle for people, because the original guy who was going to do it, who usually played villains, wanted to challenge himself, so he took on the role, so he took on animating Hercules. Eric Goldberg was going to do it, but after Jack Nicholson dropped, he did too, and decided to do Phil instead. The animator they landed on did a spectacular job, and the evidence is right there, as it took him 2 weeks just to handle 1 second trying to catch up to Woods. Like, with that combination, it's why Hades will always go down as one of the great Disney.
Yeah, easily. Matt, you were saying?
Yeah, this is what I was saying about the fully encapsulating the actor as the character, because with Radigan, you saw all of the minor mannerisms and the micro expressions and all of that. Same, and with Genie, it was the animation team just trying to keep up with Robin Williams. And here it's the same thing. They are just trying to keep up with the insanity that James Woods is bringing as this character. And the fact that they're able to match it really encapsulates that you could not do these characters if you take the actor out of it.
Exactly.
It's no longer the same character.
Easily that. Oh, go ahead, Sharvin.
Disney? This is the number one reason why you cannot do the live action remake. Without James Woods, there's just no Hercules.
Nope, not at all. No. Do not.
Yeah, no, easily, yeah. But basically what happens next is that Hades here, of course, is depicted as being a gray-skinned man with a head that's literally a flame. And what's interesting is Hades in the Greek myths was probably the nicest god in that he wasn't as much of a petty jerk as the rest of them.
I was definitely going to reference that.
Yep. He was also chalk white, and he had a very, very long black beard, but kind of an interesting take on him here. But Zeus asks Hades how things in the underworld are. As he mentions, it's dark and depressing and full of dead people, as usual. He then sees Hercules and gives him a lollipop made out of a skull and bone. Hercules, however, grabs his finger and smashes it as Hades sarcastically notes how strong he is. Zeus tells Hades to stick around and enjoy himself, as Hades notes that he can't, as his job is a full-time job, and that Zeus so graciously gave him the job. So that's, of course, he's resentment for. Especially because, in the myths, Hades was the older brother. I don't know if that's supposed to be the thing here, but in the actual Greek myths, Hades was the oldest of the gods, and he got saddled with the crummiest job, at least here. Zeus then tells him that he'll work himself to death, then laughs at his own joke, which is something he definitely would do in the myths. Let's do it that way. Oh, go ahead,
Yeah.
Sharvoun.
This leads to one of my to a line I really love because of how Woods portrays it. It's both really funny and really, but then goes into really intimidating. Where he's like, "Yeah, if only, if only." Like it goes to show how talented Woods. Like it shows that he can turn off the funny and make this character so intimidating, while also being a little funny.
Yeah.
The sarcasm, the dry wit, and then just goes straight for intimidation.
Easily. You know, the thing is like I say, it shows how much of a talented actor he is. Go ahead, Math.
So this is one of the few things that this movie actually got right as far as the myths are concerned. The original was that they were Poseidon, Zeus, and Hades were trying to figure out how to divide up the world because they were the three main brothers, and they were going to divide them up: earth, air, and sea. So Zeus was talking to Hades because Hades was the oldest, so he got to pick first, and he was telling Hades that, hey, look, you want to control all the earth. That's where everything is. That'd be great. That's the best one. And so Hades took that, and, oh, by the way, we're talking the underworld, not the earth. Sorry, bye. You ain't coming out. Toodles!
Nice. But no, yeah, like you said, Matt, that really is something else that eventually they do get things, like I say, right with it. So it's definitely interesting when they do that. Basically, what happens is he then says, "Oh, I kill myself," as he laughs, as Hades bitterly marks, "If only," before return to the underworld. Here we get to see the muses sing about Hades' evil plan and how he rules the underworld, but he's tired of his job and wants to change things up, sorry. He rides with Charion the boatman as phantoms from the underworld desperately try to join the boat, only for him to kick them back down. And one thing I will say, the design of the underworld here is just awesome. Like this, I feel is the most visually stunning like set piece of the movie that isn't the songs, rather. Just the way it looks. Just, it feels like something almost out of Faust, you know? Or something out of like a great like opera and something like that. Just like you feel the size and the spectacle of it. They did a great job with that.
Yeah,
Angron, you were saying?
Yeah, I definitely gotta agree here. The underworld definitely gives that vibe of being dour, unpleasant, a place that you don't necessarily feel ready for, and yet at the same time you ultimately have to go to, and it definitely shows here. The tall, ominous walls, like the empty abyss below, the river of souls, like even Hades' place looks pretty dang ominous, looking almost skull-like in appearance.
It's haunting, but it's
Exactly.
also beautiful at the same time.
Yeah,
I have to disagree because I don't think this is a good-looking underworld. I think this is a good-looking Tartarus. This is a good look. This is basically Tartarus. It looks amazing, but that's not the underworld. That's Tartarus. There are 3 levels of the underworld. I remember, and that is definitely, in my opinion, what Tartarus should look. It looks amazing.
That's something later in the movie, though.
Oh, sorry, never mind. But I retract my statement, and I have to agree with you fully. This and go with my original statement. That's what the inside of Bald Mountain. This is where Chernobog goes when chilling.
Yeah, I definitely can see that. But basically, so basically, he passes Cerberus. He tosses the 3-headed dog a steak before arriving to the land portion of it. Yep. He calls his minions Pain and Panic, who are 2 tiny devil-like imps. They are voiced by Bobcat Goldthwait, who was a comedian that was very popular in the 80s. He was in stuff like Police Academy and that. Then he transitioned to being a director and made some pretty good movies. His Bigfoot found footage horror movie is actually pretty solid, and he has a very distinctive voice, kind of like Gilbert Gottfried. Like, if you hear him, you definitely know it's him. And Panic is voiced by Matt Frewer, who is probably best known for being Max Headroom in the 80s, and who we probably best know from the podcast because he voiced the Pink Panther in the Muffy episode.
Mm.
Yep. They
Let's see.
they greet Hades as Panic trips and embeds his horns in Pain's rear as they salute him. Hades tells them to tell him when the Fates arrive, as they tell him that they are there. Hades is enraged by this and sets himself on fire, and part of the fun of it is when Hades sets himself on fire when he gets upset. That's always a fun little animation moment, and of course, James Woods' screams of fury is definitely hilarious here. The two imps turn themselves into literal worms and cower before him, as he makes a note to torture them after he meets with the Fates. We then cut to the three of them, who are, interestingly enough, they're kind of more like the Grey Sisters more than the actual Greek myth Fates. But it's something very, very interesting. Go ahead, Sharvoun.
I lost memo to me. Maybe two later. Getting that line out of the way, I just love it. I remember Bobcat Goldthwait from the adaptation of Scrooge, where he was hilarious. And as for the Matt Frewer joke, particularly with Max Headroom, now we know who was behind the Max Headroom.
Nice.
He actually said he kind of approved of the Max Headroom hijacking. He said that if nothing else, it fit the character.
Yeah,
So,
honestly, and I can imagine Hades got bored and decided to just mess around with humans. Hey.
Oh, man.
did it at some point.
Yeah, yeah. But anyway, let's see. Who's next? Angron, you were saying?
Oh yeah, I enjoy when Hades gets angry. Like I said, he can go from calm and collected and ultimately in control to just ultimately full on hothead. No pun intended, or screw it, pun intended. Because yeah, like this is Hades. This is Disney's Hades, and it 100% works with James Woods, and it's amazing, hands down. Like every time he gets angry and he explodes in rage, like this is basically just his anger emotion to the Inside Out fans out there taking full control whenever stuff like that happens.
Yeah,
this is Disney's Hades at his best.
Easily. So what happens next basically is that basically the Fates are busy cutting the thread of life, which kills someone as their spirit arrives in the underworld with an over 50 billion served joke, which, haha. One of the Fates, interestingly enough, is voiced by Carol Shelley, who previously voiced another Disney character because she was Lady Cluck in Robin Hood, as well as one of the two Gabble sisters in the Aristocats.
Nice.
Basically, I do like their characters in that, with them constantly answering Hades' sentence before he can finish it, and him getting progressively angrier over them doing it is a good joke.
I know.
Classic.
I know.
I got the concept.
Yeah,
It really does.
Yep. One of the Fates, Hades then asked them if Hercules would interrupt his plans for world conquest. One of the Fates said they're not supposed to reveal their future, as Hades compliments one of them before her sister punches them, knocking out the shared eye. The imps are grossed out by the eye rolling around on the floor before Hades catches it and gives it to them. The Fates show him that in 18 years the planets will align with each other and the Titans will be unleashed, with him overthrowing Zeus and taking control of the entire universe. Hades, of course, is excited at this before the Fates tell him if Hercules fights him, he will fail. I just love this one moment. He's just scream of, "What?" And he sets himself on fire. It's hilarious. It's one of his best screams of his movie, and it's so early on, too. Anyway, let's see. Angron, you were saying?
Yeah, I honestly, it would have been a funny joke if he was like, I know, I get, and like the Fates are like, I know you know, twice foretold, yeah, thank you. Just the back and forth, but just like them going like, I know, it's it's funnier in my head than actually spoken, but yeah, it's just one thing I got in my head. Anyways, Matt.
So yeah, my favorite part of this whole thing, and one of my favorite jokes in the entire movie, is when the Fates start talking about the future. They do it in rhyme because, you know, ye olde Greek style, and Hades just goes, "Oi, verse." I should not be identifying with the villain this much.
Yeah, it definitely feels like it was almost improv in a way, and that really, really is funny. Sharvoun, you were saying?
Indoor plumbing. It's gonna be big.
That was a
Yeah.
good joke. I
That's
swear.
great, Soap. That's a good one.
Yeah, I
Uh,
also like his thing where it's like, okay, it's fine, it's cool, it's fine, I'm cool, I'm fine. It's like more of that Hades charm.
Yeah, that definitely is a good moment. So basically, what happens is Hades then asks Pain and Panic how to kill a god, but they're stumped because, of course, gods are immortal. Hades then says that we're gonna have to make the little sunspot mortal, aren't we? As he holds up a vial, which is not the same vial from Bartok the Magnificent, sadly, but we
Aw.
can't have everything.
Dang.
Basically, we then cut to Mount Olympus, where Helios rides his chariot to make it night again. Hercules and Pegasus are sleeping, and something that's funny is Pegasus's little sleeping noises here. It almost sounds identical to the noise that Eddie makes in the Ed, Edd and Eddie episode where he loses his voice. That weird little squeaky sound. It always reminded me of that for some reason.
Nice.
However, yep, Pain
I
and
never
Panic
actually
creep up.
noticed that.
Yep. Pain and Panic creep up to Hercules while he's sleeping and steals him away, with Zeus and Hera shocked. Hera, of course, is shocked not because they stole Hercules, but because she was the one who was going to kill him first, and that's the last time we'll make that joke, okay?
Wow.
Zeus, of course, screams no as lightning strikes everywhere. However, Pain and Panic just barely make it down to the surface world, where they force feed Hercules the potion that's supposed to turn him mortal. However, before he can finish drinking the entire thing, a voice causes the two imps to flee, causing the bottle to smash in a single droplet of it remaining. This means that Hercules is not a god, but he's not a mortal either. He technically now is a demigod. Hercules is then found by Amphitryon and Alcmene, who call out if anyone found this baby, as they find a medallion with Hercules' name on it and a lightning bolt. And at this point, this is where the movie basically becomes Disney's version of Superman, because you could definitely feel like that was the inspiration for this more than Greek mythology in a lot of ways. Like, it actually does it like beat for beat in some points with the Superman story. Unfortunately, there was no Otisburg, so can't have everything. But Pain and Panic then show up and turn into snakes to try to kill Hercules, but he throttles and beats them up, which is mythologically accurate, so points for that.
Heyo.
Points for it not being Hera sending them, but whatever. Panic then notes that Hercules is still alive and Hades will kill them when they find out, before Pain says, if they find out. And of course the response with, if. If is good. That's a great joke right there. Like, Pain and Panic has their great moments, dude. Like, Hades is good, but Pain and Panic really are just as good in a lot of moments. Anyway,
Yeah.
let's see, go ahead.
Also, you mean if he finds out? Panic
If it's good.
in 18 years? That's gonna come back and haunt you.
Yeah.
Yep, it definitely
Also,
will.
Also, sorry if I left my microphone on. You guys heard
You're
something.
good, man.
Oh,
It's all good. So the muses then sing about how Zeus sent all of the other gods to find Hercules, but found nothing, and how, since Hercules did not drink all of the potion, he managed to retain his godlike strength. However, since he isn't a god, he could never come home, and Zeus had to watch Hercules be raised by two mortals. The muses sing about how Hercules grew stronger every day, and how Hades began his evil plotting without knowing about Hercules' existence. We then cut to a small hamlet where a teenager Hercules is arriving with his father, managing to drive a chariot filled with hay before stopping in the middle of the town square. Teenager Hercules is actually voiced by Joss Keaton, who also voiced another teenage hero. He was Spider-Man in Spectacular Spider-Man.
Nice.
Yep, definitely interesting casting there. Also, Sharvoun, you
Yeah.
were saying?
No, just reacting. Like, what?
Okay, all good, yeah. Matt, you
Yeah.
were saying?
One thing I find kind of interesting about this movie, and I'm not sure if I'm correct in looking at this this way, until we get to Teenage Hercules, this is basically an 11-minute prologue for the movie, and once we hit Teenage Hercules, that's when the movie proper starts.
That is interesting. I think Disney as a whole were doing that a lot of the time because you gotta figure Lion King had the Circle of Life section. You gotta figure Hunchback had the entire intro before the story truly began. I feel like Disney at this time period, they definitely were working with it, or at least they were working that out in a way.
Yeah.
So it definitely seems like something very, very interesting. But what happens next is that Hercules then lifts the hay up before his father tells him to not do it just yet. when he does put it down and launches their donkey up into the sky. Hercules catches her just in time as his father tells him to stay by the cart as he begrudgingly does so. He then sees a citizen having trouble holding an enormous vase and goes to help him. The citizen, Demetrius, is voiced by none other than Wayne Knight, and this could only mean one thing. He's secretly working with Hades and he's going to use his transdipulator on him.
Oh gosh.
No,
I had to
man.
bring that up. I think this is like the 7th or 8th time we've referenced Zurg and the transdipulator, and spoiler, we're going to reference it many, many more times.
Yeah.
But anyway, what happens? But yep. So what happens is he says that he doesn't need it, that he's fine, despite him clearly struggling with holding it. A group of other teenagers is busy throwing a discus as Hercules asks if they want to play. They hurriedly makes an excuse that we already have 5 and we want an even number of players before they run off, calling Hercules a freak while they do so. However, Hercules then catches the discus when it accidentally flies towards him, causing him to knock into a pillar, which in turn creates a domino effect of all the pillars collapsing and the town square totally destroyed. Demetrius' vases appear to be fine for a moment before they're all destroyed by a falling pillar. He and the other townsfolk yell at Hercules, calling him a freak and saying that he shouldn't be around normal people, to which I have to say one thing. Don't feel too bad, Hercules. The Powerpuff Girls went through the exact same thing through their movie, and they turned out fine. Maybe the movie itself didn't turn out fine,
Nice.
but hey, it worked that one way.
Oh yeah, Hercules is such a freak with his good looks and his strong, immense strength. And are you sure these
His
townsfolk are just
dorkiness.
Are you sure these townsfolk aren't just jealous of him?
Yeah,
Probably.
yeah. But Hercules and his father are sitting on a hillside as Hercules buries his head in his hands. His father tells him not to let the others get to him, as Hercules says that they are right and that he does not belong there. It's here where Hercules begins singing Go the Distance, which is the big ballad number of the movie, where he sings about wanting to find who he is and where he truly belongs. And here we get to a fun fact that really made me laugh hard when I said
boy.
it, is that Hercules' singing voice is done by none other than Roger Bart, who was in another movie musical. He played the butler in The Producers to Roger Debris. And yeah, if you've seen The Producers, definitely a different type of role from Hercules. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Matt, you were saying?
I Can Go the Distance is my favorite song in this movie because it normally I'm not very fond of these I Want More songs, but it really works here with Hercules because he just does not feel like he actively belongs in the world that he is in, and especially with the reprisal after events, when he sounds so upbeat and happy now that he is working towards finding a way to fit into the world where he knows that he belongs. The way that they handled that was really well done, and it just adds so much depth to a character like these songs are supposed to do. Also, a little thing I really like that I've noticed over many rewatches, the blue scarf that his mother gives him on his so that he can begin his journey. I think that he repurposed that into his outfit, the little blue cape.
Huh.
Well,
That
dang.
is something that is very interesting if that's was
That's a
intentional.
nice
I give them credit for
detail.
that. I give them a lot of credit for that. So what happens next basically is that oh, go ahead, Tyler.
First of all, listen, you broken down old queen. He was drunk. He was hot. You got lucky. Don't ever call here again. I love Roger Bart. And second, Roger Bart was recently played Doc Brown in the musical version of Back to the Future, of which he was nominated for a Tony Award.
I mean, he
Huh.
left at some point.
I did not know they made a musical version of Back to the Future. Interesting. I'll give them credit for that. That is definitely
Yeah.
an interesting movie to make a musical out of. So basically, Hercules' adoptive father then gives him a
Okay.
medallion, as Hercules is amazed seeing it's from the gods. He says that he will go to the temple of Zeus. He then tells his adoptive parents he loves them and that they are the greatest parents no matter what. We then get a continuation of the song as he travels to the temple of Zeus, then makes an offering and basically asks the gigantic statue of Zeus that he wants to find out where he belongs. The statue crackles to electricity and comes to life as Zeus leans forward and says, "My boy," to which I can say only one thing. Zeus is probably going to say, I wonder what's for dinner,
Dinner.
next. Yeah.
Dinner.
Had
Also,
to do it. Sorry.
Her-
Sorry. But
also
yeah,
Hercules' reaction to seeing this, very appropriate.
it's funny. It's really legitimately a funny sequence. Probably the best
Yeah.
bit of comedy with Hercules himself is his freak out over seeing the statue come to life and grab him.
You mean the
Yeah.
best, the funniest scene without Hades?
Yeah. Also,
Yeah,
on
or
the
Bandana.
go the dis. Yeah. Also on the go the distance song. I remember. I distinctly remember it because like there's this one episode of Mau Mau Here's a Pure Heart where Badger Clops does this whole parody thing of it where he's like acting super diva more than usual, and he like goes off and joins the bad guys, and he's like doing that sort of thing where he's like singing like I finally found where I belong, that sort of thing. But it's just him straight up being being his diva self, and it's pretty hilarious.
Nice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
nice. But basically, the statue of Zeus then picks up Hercules and says that he is his true father before yelling, "Surprise!" which pulls Hercules' hair back. He then notes that Hercules has beautiful eyes like Hera and a strong chin like his. Hercules then realizes that if Zeus and Hera are his true parents, he is a god, then wonders why he was sent down to Earth, wondering if they truly love him. Zeus tells him that somebody stole him away and turned him mortal, and they love him with all their hearts and that. He says that Hercules cannot return to Mount Olympus as he is not a god, then says that he can become a god if he proves himself a true hero. Hercules asks how he can become a true hero, and Hercules, if you want to know that, you can just ask Bartok the Magnificent. He has an old song about becoming a true hero.
Oh yeah.
Nice.
But Zeus tells him to go to Philoctetes as Hercules prepares to leave. Zeus tells him to hold his horses, which then leads to a pun because it reminds him to summon Pegasus from the heavens. Pegasus then bumps heads with Hercules and then licks him like he did when they first met. The pair embrace as Zeus calls him a fine horse with the brain of a bird, causing Pegasus to look offended. Hercules promises Zeus that he'll make him proud as he flies off on Pegasus, finishing the song Go the Distance as he does so. Hercules then lands on a distant island, filled with goats and sheep's bleating. He then goes into the woods, seeing a group of nymphs bathing before seeing what appears to be a goat, asking if it's all right there. It turns out to not be a goat, but a satyr, which is none other than Phil himself, which is, we now are introduced to the best cinematic satyr in a movie since Torgo from Manos the Hands of Fate. And man, would I have loved to see that version. You want training, Hercules? Master wants you. Master wants
gosh.
you. He can't have
Wow.
you. I want you. Had to do it. I'm sorry. I had to reference Torgo in some way with the satire. I'm sorry.
That
yeah.
makes Master Roshi look more respectable in all things, and it definitely makes him more
Had to do
respectable
it,
than
sorry.
Phil. That's for
So,
sure.
yeah.
Oh dear God.
Yeah. it's just, so yeah.
Ooh,
Basically,
what a fun.
Phil is voiced by none other than Danny DeVito, who does a really, really good job with the role. Like I say, he's basically playing a version of Mickey from Rocky, but I don't know, something about his acting ability, he's really good. And spoiler, we're gonna make reference to Danny DeVito's other work in this, so get ready for that.
Yeah.
Sharvoun, you were saying?
Fun fact: Danny DeVito, they designed the character to be basically DeVito, but DeVito originally turned it down.
Huh.
No, seriously, he originally turned it down. But after auditioning they tried auditioning many actors, including Red Buttons, who said they should get DeVito. Well, DeVito, after sitting down to have lunch with him during the making of Matilda, DeVito finally agreed to it. And he was the one who actually recommended Jack Nicholson.
Nice.
I did not know that. Wow, they wanted Red Buttons as Phil? That would have been a interesting casting also at that point. Shame he wasn't, because then we could make Poseidon adventure jokes instead of It's Always Sunny jokes, but what can you do? Matt, you were saying?
Philoctetes is the perfect example of what I was talking about earlier as well, because Danny DeVito is very much Phil. You could attempt to replace his voice, and it would be a very different character, yes, but you could still have the character there. Whereas with Hades, because they have so many of James Woods's facial tics and movements and all of that stuff. You can't do that with James Woods. He just is Hades entirely. And Phil is the second best character in this movie. So that just shows the difference of level that they put into for each character.
Easily.
Also,
So,
I have to make this reference.
go
I'm
ahead.
the Bushman. I'm throwing bushes at you.
Trash man.
Had to do.
Exactly.
And yep, there's going to be others before. He then chases after the nymphs, and one of them turns into a tree just as he grabs her. He claims that they all love him as the nymph swats him away before he starts eating grapes and says, "You never see a satyr before?" Hercules says that he's looking for Philocities before he tells him to call him Phil. Hercules then embraces him, causing Phil to gasp for air before introducing him to Pegasus, who licks him. Phil angrily rants about animals for a couple of seconds before storming off, telling him 2 words, "I am retired," which leads to a pretty... go ahead, sorry.
A couple things. One correction. He doesn't eat the grapes, he eats the bowl. And second, Phil, you should count yourself lucky. If there was an actual god there, this could have ended much worse.
Oh yeah, Artemis.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah. But basically that leads to a pretty cute joke as Hercules counts on his fingers as 3 words, but in Greek, like a lot of languages in Europe, "I am retired" is only 2 words, so kind of cute little joke there.
Mhm.
Hercules then tells him he has to do this, asking Phil if he ever had a dream. Phil tells him to come inside as Hercules does so. Pegasus also tries to come in, but can't because his rear is too big, trapping him outside. And Princess Celestia probably has the same exact problem.
Yeah, and maybe Zubair, but who knows?
That too. But one inside, we get one joke that always never really made sense to me. Hercules bumps his head on the Argo, which is a joke that doesn't make sense because Hercules is one of the Argonauts. It's like, it's one of those things that it's like, when you really stop to think about it, it's like reality should be collapsing in on itself now, you know?
It must have been like a nod or something. Yeah, I wouldn't think too hard on it.
Yeah, I guess. But Phil explains that all of these are from heroes like Perseus, Theseus, and Odysseus. All of whom failed him. Yep.
Special note on Theseus, like, as Phil spins the plate around, which, nice touch with the zoetrope and whatnot, it shows the Minotaur literally mangling Theseus, which, wow, I am a huge Minotaur fan, so that right there really tickles my, really tickles my something fierce. It's also funny
definitely.
seeing the roles reversed.
Yep, it's a good little twist there, that's for sure. But basically, Phil is probably jealous because in their stories they all succeeded, except of course for the one that Angron just mentioned. He then brings up Achilles and how he was unstoppable, then mentions the heel cracking the giant statue of him. Phil says that he had a dream to train the greatest hero ever, one that would be a constellation and that they would all look up and say, "That's Phil's boy." Oh, go ahead, Sharvoun.
This is an interesting point I want to get at here. Like, while the movie is definitely about Hercules and Meg's there too, and Pegasus, and of course, Hades is the best character, Phil, if you really think about it, and this is totally me stealing this point from Shea Frillis, Phil is basically the emotional core. He's the most emotionally driven out of all of them. His goal is basically he wants to have a legacy, wants to help. The way DeVito just says, it's Phil's, like, he's basically the character we're probably the second most emotionally invested in, right after Hades.
Yeah. I also like the little thing where every Greek hero Phil ever trained failed in this universe. So basically, again, the Minotaur defeated Theseus, Achilles got defeated for the most part, and a bunch of others ultimately failed, likely day one, meaning that Hercules in this universe was around to pick up the slack, which is a very interesting thought, all things considered.
Yeah. It's definitely a bit of interesting world building there, especially considering the animated spin-off show, but we'll get to that later. Hercules then tells Phil he can go the distance as he shows Phil he can lift up a gigantic statue of a discus, tossing it away with ease. Phil then considers it before walking off, saying that he shouldn't do it and that he's too old to help. Hercules tells Phil that he won't be able to join Zeus, as Phil laughs and makes fun of him for supposedly being Zeus's son. We then get the next song, One Last Hope, and the first verse here is about how Phil does not want to help him and be disappointed once again. Just as Phil's going to tell him no, a lightning bolt strikes him as he says okay, which, well, Phil, it could be worse. My nose could be gushing blood.
Yeah. Also, good words for you, kid.
Okay.
I love that so much. That's easily one of the funniest Phil lines, period.
Yeah,
kid
definitely.
you not.
I love to think when Phil looked up, he saw Zeus with a very livid, "Do it or I will kill you."
Yeah, he's just giving him the death glare as he looks down from Olympus.
Definitely can see that. Yeah. So, basically, the next verse has Phil preparing the training area as Hercules begins to reform his training, not doing well at first. We then get like a spoken interlude with Hercules training some more, with also learning the rules of training, which is probably better than learning the rules of acquisition from the Ferengi. Hercules then gets a more stronger and more skilled hero as the song ends with Hercules completing his training. And it's here we get to Hercules' hero outfit, which is very interesting because they based it on an Italian peplum movie, The Love of Hercules, which is also known as Hercules versus the Hydra, which is a movie that we are going to cover on the podcast later on this year. So that'll definitely be interesting talking about an older version of Hercules from Italy. Let's say it that way.
Yeah.
Angron, you were saying?
Yeah. Also, I love the one literal '90s nod that they do in this movie, where it's like basically 1-to-1 with the Karate Kid, but it's Greek, and like.
Oh yeah, the Karate Kid reference.
Yes. Also,
Yeah.
Sharvoun.
This is my personal favorite song of the soundtrack. I just love, mostly because of Danny DeVito's performance. To me, this is proof why only Danny DeVito could have done. This is proof that only DeVito could bring this character to life. It's basically like Friend Like Me with Robin Williams, or Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson with You're Welcome. You hear that? People who put Emma Watson and Gal Gadot in singing roles. The reason why these songs sounded so good was because these actors who performed them were always
singers.
They were not actual singers. The songs were designed for these. That's the same thing with the original Gladys John for A Little Night Music.
That works too.
Yeah, no, definitely. I definitely can see that. So what happens then is that basically he tells Phil that he's now ready to go the distance. However, Phil eventually agrees, deciding to take him to Thebes. The pair fly through the air on Pegasus as Phil explains about Thebes being a good place to begin before hearing a woman scream. Phil says that it's a DID, a damsel in distress, as they fly down. We then cut to Megara being captured by Nessius the Centaur, and using Nessus is a really, really deep cut because in the actual myths, and yes, take a shot from when we talk about the actual myths in this episode, he actually kills Hercules because it gives him a cloak that is made of his poisoned blood, basically forcing Hercules to basically burn himself alive just to be rid of the poison, and of course he dies. However, now let's talk about a little bit about Megara, because she's the female love interest of this movie, and she's a very, very fun one. Very different from what Disney was doing at the time period. Like, and the closest one before this was maybe a little bit of Jasmine, but this one is like totally new, I think, for Disney at the time. She's voiced by Susan Egon, aka Pink Diamond, who, she does a great, great job with the role. You know, it feels like nowadays with Disney trying to make all their like female characters, oh, they're so quirky and adorable. It's like, it's nice to see one that, you know, is just like unapologetically just herself in a way.
Definitely. Also, on that note, there was this joke that I was going to make a little while ago regarding Steven Universe, where it's like Hercules and he's like developing, and it was going to go like this: till I began to hone a power all my own. strength, and I could feel growing stronger every day. And I want to save not
Nice,
just the whole
nice.
planet. Yeah, I forget the line, but yeah, it's pretty much the joke I was
Yeah.
going to do, and it definitely works here for her, the voice actress. Sharvoun?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Also, two things. One, hi, other movie betterer Jim Cummings voicing Centaur. Seriously, that's Jim
Nice.
Cummings. Second,
I
and most
know.
of all, Susan Egan actually had to fight to get into a Disney. The closest she got was playing Belle in the Broadway version of Beauty and the Beast. And Alan
Nice.
Menken was very hesitant to cast her as Megara. But after auditioning, she finally achieved her dream of being in a Disney.
Really? Wow. I did not know that. That is awesome to hear. You know, huge thumbs up for her. Then, Matt, you were
Yeah,
saying?
huge win.
I find Meg to be the single biggest factor in why I think that this is effectively Disney doing a Superman movie. She's literally just Lois Lane.
For the
Yeah,
most
definitely
part,
see
yeah.
that. Yeah, I could definitely
didn't
see why.
That's not said as a
coming
bad thing for the
forward.
record. Like, you can see that her personality, her snarkiness, her strong attitude is very much Lois Lane inspired, which works for what they're doing here.
Exactly, because again, it's like if Disney's doing like a version of Hercules, they got to have like a Lois in a way. And I never thought of it before, but now that you say it, I definitely could see that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
this
that's
definitely
it.
works for her character here
Interesting.
for the most part.
Very, very good take. You know, it's one of those things I never would have thought about before that. However, Phil, Pegasus, and Hercules watch what is happening as Phil tells Hercules to analyze the situation and not to just barge in there. Hercules being Hercules, he doesn't listen and he just tells Nessus to halt. There's a really adult joke with him checking under Nessus's legs if we're calling him Sir. Which, you know,
Nice.
yeah, definitely DreamWorks tier there. Hercules
Yeah.
then tells Nessus to release Megara before Megara tells him to keep moving. Hercules is confused, wondering why Megara isn't a damsel in distress before she dryly says, "I'm a damsel, I'm in distress, have a nice day." Hercules is confused as Nessus knocks him into the water before he reaches for his sword, instead pulling out a fish, which, okay, if Hercules is as strong as he is, he could have beaten the hell out of Nessus with the fish. And that would have probably been even cooler to see him do that, you know? I don't have my
Definitely.
sword. Okay, I'm going to beat you in the brain with this. But anyway, yeah, you were saying?
Yeah, I mean, Link could definitely do better with a pot with a spoon and a pot lid. I mean, he did that with the Guardian. Also, on the Zelda angle, like I'm imagining Link going up to a Lionel and like him near like Urbosa or something like that, and he's just like, "Excuse me," looks under the Lionel, sir. Or since Lionels don't necessarily have freaking things under there, he would just be standing there awkwardly, just like trying to figure out what gender this frickin' Lionel is, and Lionel's just like, and just does the frickin' fight.
Lightning.
That would have been amazing. That would have been
Yeah.
amazing. Math?
I'm not sure why, to this day, Disney was really, really proud of that fish sword joke. This was the thing that they used in all the advertising.
That right.
Huh. Well, I was probably too
Yeah,
young to see the commercials,
everything
like,
for
wow.
the movie, everything for the VHS release, no matter where you go, no matter what ad you saw, this was the one that was always in every version of it, the fish sword.
In the
Yeah, this
It
is
was
an
always
arbitrary one to
peach.
choose, too.
Yeah.
That's really an arbitrary joke. It'd be like, it's kind of like a Toy Story that their big, you know, climatic moment was Buzz Lightyear going, "Yeah, Woody, you can't fly." Can. And that was like the big thing they ended the trailer on. But anyway, Sharvoun?
Yeah, he could have beaten up the fish, but I think Herc is just too nice to harm a living creature.
Yeah.
He very
This-
much is.
he's
Very-
too- He's too nice to break a fish's leg.
yes, was waiting for that. But
You
anyway,
had to reference it.
yep. He is then knocked away by Nessus into the rocks as Pegasus growls and prepares to fight, but Phil says that Hercules has to do it on his own. He tells Hercules to use his head as he then takes a cue from his favorite character from Toy Story 2, Rex, "But I don't want to use my head," as he
I was
headbutts
gonna
the centaur
reference
into
that.
a waterfall. He then picks up a soaked Megara out of the water and says, "That was stupid," as she agrees, before he begins wrestling with Nessus. The pair grapple as Phil arrives, cheering on Hercules as Megara says is Wonder Boy here for real? Phil says that he is, and then begins hitting on Megara, saying that I'm real too before she knocks him into the water. Hercules is riding on Nessus before swinging him around a tree branch. He then punches Nessus into the face, causing the centaur to fly off into the distance. When he lands, his horseshoes impact him on the head, knocking him out. Hercules then asks how he did, as Phil says that he shouldn't make such rookie mistakes. Hercules says that I still beat him, didn't I? As Phil tells him not to get too distracted over it. Of course, at this moment, Hercules is getting distracted by Megara's beauty as he passes both Phil and Pegasus to approach her. Pegasus literally turns red with rage as he and Phil snort over the sight of her. Hercules then asks, Hercules then asks for her name as she says, Megara, Meg to my friends, but I don't have friends. She then sultryly asks for Hercules' name as he is tongue-tied before saying it. She laughs, saying that she'd prefer to hear Wonder Boy. He then asks how she got to know Nessus, as she says, you know how men are, no means yes and get lost means take me, I'm yours, which has a lot of implications considering Greek mythology, but regardless. What happens next is that, go ahead, Angron.
You should say that, because given her backstory and given what she had to do, yeah, there's a little darker implications going towards that, but we'll get to that in a moment.
Yeah, we will get to that in a little while. But what happens next is that Hercules has no idea what she means, as she sarcastically thanks Hercules. He offers to take her on Pegasus, however, Pegasus nickers and snarls at Megara, with her noting that your Pinto doesn't like me, haha. He says that Pegasus is harmless, as he drops an apple on Herc's head to say otherwise. She then leaves, with her hips swaying as she does so, and yeah, you can definitely tell the animators had a lot of fun with her, let's say it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Hercules is basically falling for her, as Phil tries to explain that they have a job to do, before all three of them ride off on Pegasus. Megara then walks into the woods before seeing an adorable rabbit and squirrel. She sarcastically says it's two rodents looking for a theme park before they turn back into pain and panic. Hades then shows up again. Oh, go ahead, Math.
A literal incarnation of evil in the form of a rabbit? How'd they get my pet in there?
Yeah.
Perfect. Angel Bunny before Angel Bunny.
Yeah, definitely. Nice.
And Alvin and the Chipmunks.
Nice.
That too. But Hades then shows up again as he asks her what happened with the River Guardian, saying that he wanted Nessus as part of his evil villain, but now, of course, he can't have it. She says that he made her an offer that she had to refuse, as Hades slyly says that he's going to add 2 years onto her sentence instead of taking off 2 years. Megara then notes that it wasn't her fault. She says that it was the Wonder Boy, Hercules. And here we get a really, really funny series of jokes here, with Hades being shocked over hearing that name, while Pain and Panic try to wonder where they know it from, with saying, maybe we owe him money? That is just like a cute thing there. But when Megara clarifies who Hercules is, Hades goes into a rage as Pain and Panic finally put the pieces together that Hercules was the guy they were supposed to kill. Hades pulls them towards him and begins to choke them as they try to explain. The joke about Hercules is a very popular name these days. Hades just sheer rage of this section is just great. It is so fantastic.
Yep.
Yo, it's one of the definitely the funnier buddy sports the movies. Sharvoun, you were saying?
Yeah. I'm about to rearrange the car. I'm not going to finish that because I don't want to scream, but also, like, literally the face Hades makes when he's looking at Pain and Panic, the one I posted on the chat when he's looking at Pain and Panic while Mega is talking, that's a face that says, I just remembered a memo I made to myself 18 years ago. I'm about to enact it.
Nice.
Yeah, definitely. However, Pain and Panic note that they made Hercules mortal and can still stop him. Hades then says that all three of them have time to fix their mistake. We then cut to Hercules and Phil arriving to Thebes, which is the Big Olive, which leads to a lot of funny little jokes here, with the traffic light being a man holding a green vase and then a red vase, the wanna buy a sundial vendor that also looks like a flasher, and the Midnight Cowboy reference, which definitely would be a very interesting movie. This is more like Midnight Cowboy.
Yeah.
But
I especially love the little stoplight urn because he holds it, but he also turns it to signal stop and go, which is a very nice touch.
Yep, that's a really cute joke there. But we then cut to a group of citizens all talking about the various issues and problems that has happened to Thebes. One of them says, "All we need is a plague of locusts," as one shows up in church, freaking them out. The old man says, "I'm moving to Sparta," which, that's not a good idea, old timer. You're going to get there and Leonidas is going to kick you into the pit of death.
Yeah, I'd rather take my chances with Crete. At least there they got minotaurs.
Yeah, that too, that
That's
too. But Hercules then shows up and proclaims himself a hero before the citizens ask if he performed any heroic deeds before he admits no. Phil tries to convince them otherwise as one of the citizens notes that Phil trained Achilles and mocks him for it. Phil gets enraged and attacks the man, basically acting like a wild animal at this moment. One of the women said they need a professional hero, not an amateur, as they walk off. Hercules, meanwhile, wonders if he will ever be able to prove himself as Megara arrives, begging for a hero before telling him about a terrible rock slide and how 2 children are trapped. Hercules is enthusiastic about this, causing Meg to sarcastically remark, "Oh, you're really choked up about this, aren't you?" before he takes her on the back of Pegasus and they fly off, with her being afraid of heights. Phil chases after them as we cut to them landing, with Pegasus laughing at Megara's shocked state. The 2 children are trapped under a boulder, with one of them calling for help and saying, "Call IXII," to which I have to put on my nerd face here. Actually, the Greeks didn't use Roman numerals as it was invented by the Romans and they had 2 different styles of mathematics. But, animated movie for kids, so gotta do that. But Hercules then lifts the boulder up as the Thebians applaud at this, as the boys note how strong he is. Hercules easily tosses the boulder aside as the 2 boys return to Hades, showing that they were pain and panic the whole time. I do love the part with the panic being "Jeepers, mister," and pain being "I was getting into character," being a really, really fun line.
Yeah.
Hades also gives Meg 2 thumbs way up for her performance as she begs him to get out of there. Hercules says that he did great and got applause. However, a roar comes from the cavern as an enormous beast slowly comes out of it. Hercules asks Phil what is it, as it turns out to be none other than the Hydra, which is the reason we are talking about this movie on the podcast. Go ahead, Angron.
Yeah. This is the moment where you're either going to love the movie or kind of fall out of the movie, because the CG on the Hydra, it definitely holds up in many aspects, especially visually and like how the overall scene plays out because of it. But then again, there have been advancements in CG that have done its job way better, and this right here, I don't mind it personally, but I can definitely understand how a lot of people would be like, nah. I mean, it's not too bad. Again, there are better CG moments, but this right here is one of those things where I personally don't mind it. The age, it does look polished for a CG creature, and it blends well with the 2D, but it's not as impressive, even if it does hold up.
I feel for 1997, this looks pretty good considering when this is made. This is made
I
around the
agree.
same time as stuff like a Dragonheart, which, I mean, good movie. It looks terrible. Terrible
Yeah.
by today's standards. So it's like, this being passable, I think because they kept it in the dark, definitely works out good. And the reason why we're discussing the Hydra is because according to the official art book, the Hydra is canonically female here, as well as in other Greek mythological stories. Here,
Oh.
the Hydra has like dark purple scaly skin, as well as, interestingly enough, a more reptilian or serpent-like rather appearance with its face and eyes. And it apparently took 18 months for animators to complete the Hydra sequence. And I'm gonna be honest, it was worth every second of it because this is the standout action set piece of the movie. I dare say that they should have saved this for near the end and had like the Cyclops earlier, but maybe that's just me. But yeah, Hercules dodges the Hydra's attacks at him before he's knocked away, losing his sword. Hercules throws a boulder in the Hydra's mouth, making her the first of 19 of late 90s purple reptiles to get boulders stuck in their mouths. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Matt, you were saying?
Yeah, I actually disagree with Angron here. I think that the CG in this holds up astoundingly well because I don't think it was cell shading they did, but they did put coloring over it, so it's not just pure CG. It's
Yeah.
why games like Jet Set Radio Future still hold up today, even though it's very, very early PS2 Xbox era, because they
Yeah.
used a styling for it rather than just graphics of the day, so it looks good because it really hasn't aged for the graphics of the day.
Yeah, I never said I didn't like it. I just said that I understand why other people wouldn't like it. I personally do,
Okay.
and I gotta agree with you on that. But yeah.
Yeah,
I-
Also
definitely.
Sharvoun?
Definitely. Yep.
I just also have to say the design is also just so unique and so flashy and so great. This is definitely a movie made by Scarface. If you look up the concept art and compare it to what we got in the finished product, you can it's definitely a work of art. That she's just a work of genius, especially after she chomps the boulder and she gives a smile like, "Oh, dude, you're gonna die now."
You're dead.
Definitely. Matt, you were saying?
And the other part I was going to say is that I think that this is actually the single best action piece that was made for the entire Disney Renaissance. So you saying 18 months, I call BS on that. This looks like it would have taken 3 full years for how good it is.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. It really, really is something else, you know? It again, it was worth every single second for this. But Hercules then literally holds the Hydra's jaw open as he goes for his sword, but she wraps her tongue around his body, throws him in the air, and eats him. Phil facepalms, the Hydra belches, then roars at the crowd before stopping. And one thing I have to admit here, I do like what they did. They gave the Hydra somewhat of a character here. She's not like a completely feral monster here. They actually gave her like a personality of like, and the expressions on her face. I give them credit. I give them credit for doing that, especially again for the time period. However, Hercules then stabs her head from within the neck, ripping off her head and seemingly killing the monster. Hercules says that was
kid.
Yep, but hey, as Gonzo said, it's not scary, it's culture. But
Yep.
Hercules says that wasn't so hard and stumbles off before falling, as Phil asks him how many horns he sees. After Hercules says 6, Phil says that they'll clean him up. While Pain and Panic are worried, Hades tells him to relax as it is only halftime, and... go ahead, Sharvoun. Sharvoun, you were saying?
Sharvoun?
It's definitely showtime because if you know the original myth, they uphold it in a spectacularly animated way.
Definitely.
Yeah, easily. And what happens, of course, is the Hydra, of course, grows 2 more heads where one was. Hercules runs on the Hydra before Pegasus comes to save him as he continuously decapitates the heads. The Hydra ends up with, judging from my best guess of counting, I think 21 heads as they all turn around and stare at each other. Phil's cry of, "Will you forget the head slicing?" is funny. And obviously, he didn't listen from Kingdom Hearts. Get up on the Hydra's back!
I was just gonna reference that.
Hydra's back! One of us was going to do that, let's be real. One of us is going to reference that at one point. But Hercules rides off on Pegasus as the heads snap at him before 2 of them crash into each other. One of the heads tackles Pegasus as Hercules slides down on its neck before one of the heads prepares to eat him. Another one of the Hydra's heads bites at him too early, hurting the other head. Hercules then grapples onto a cliffside as all of the heads stare at him and hiss evilly. Hades then says that it's time for my favorite part of the game, sudden death, to which I have to say only one thing. Hey, we do not get to see Jean-Claude Van Damme fight a penguin mascot now. This is not sudden death.
Once
What?
again,
Right.
James
All-
Woods owns that line. The way he delivers it, it's a nice little reminder that while he's hilarious, the man is not to be trifled with.
He is a
Easily.
god
Favorite
of death,
part of-
and he will prove it.
Easily, yeah.
Favorite part of the game.
Yeah.
Death.
So good.
Part of the game.
Yep.
Sudden death.
Yes.
Yep, but basically, what happens, of course, is Hercules gets an all of the heads lunge at him as Hercules smashes his fist on the mountain, calling the Hydra and seemingly Hercules to get crushed by all the boulders. Phil walks away sadly, calling Hercules just like Achilles. Hades begins to light a cigar in triumph before the Hydra's fist opens up to reveal Hercules. Hercules then tells Phil that you have to admit that was pretty heroic as Phil cheers him on. Hades is enraged, causing Pain and Panic to light up in his grip as Meg looks on in awe. And we then get to what I feel is the best song in the movie, Zero to Hero, which is 3 pure minutes of awesomeness. It basically shows about how Hercules gets increasingly more popular, as well as defeating monsters like giant boars and harpies, as well as becoming increasingly famous. The way they parody it with stuff like Hercules credit cards, a Hercules store, Air Herc, and an energy drink all named after him is funny, and the song is amazing because it just keeps going and building and building, and you think the song's going to end, and then it just gets to the chorus, and it's like, you are blown away by it, you know? It's one of those songs that definitely is a standout of the movie. I feel like this is probably the best animated part of the movie, and probably the best part of the movie in general, to be honest, because, man, it is just such a fun sequence. It is 3 whole minutes of just amazing, really, really great stuff here. And
Yeah.
Hades getting increasingly enraged as Hercules beats all the monsters is hilarious. Him like head desking, the desk in that is just great. And man, it is fun. It is so much fun. Angron, you were saying?
Yeah, I gotta admit, this, I was already a fan of most of the gospel songs involved with this film, because, I am a sucker for that sort of thing, as well as acapella, more acapella than this. But, yeah, I definitely gotta admit, this might be one of my favorite songs, hands down, because this is where Herc pretty much picks up the slack, like I said from before. In this universe, every other hero Phil has trained has ultimately either failed at some point or didn't exactly do well at their big moment. But here is where Hercules pretty much proves himself and does all that. So, yeah, like I said, this universe is unique for that and honestly much else, but that mainly alone, in my opinion. Also, Sharvoun?
I also really love the commentary displayed during the song. It's once again, not only is it a superhero story, but it's also a satire on celebrity culture and lifestyle. We see Hercules become a rising star, and the lyrics reflect that. Even at one point, one of the music's going, "And the nicest guy." It's basically how the 90s and even early 2000s basically promoted their celebrities. And that's part of the reason why I feel like the Vegas art style and music choices really, really work here, because it's basically the story of Elvis if he was Superman and a Greek man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. But like I said, it's one of those things that it really shows how much fun it is and how much effort they put into the song. It is, for me, the standout of the movie. And like I say, if this was just like a 2-part movie and it ended part 1 here, that would have been perfectly fine with me, because this is like the peak of the movie. But after the song, we still get a lot of good stuff, because we see Hades angrily smashing vases with Hercules' face on them, lamenting how nothing can stop him. He then notices Hercules wearing a set of
Pain.
Tongue twister there. He then notices Pain wearing a set of Hercules brand sandals and asks, "What are those?" And
A meme before it
Pain
became
says,
a meme.
Yep, Hades did before it was cool. Pain says, "I don't know, they're kind of fetching." We then get the funniest joke of the movie. The all-time funniest joke for me, with his Hades screaming, "I have 24 hours to finish off this bozo, or the plan I put together for 18 years fails, and you are wearing his merchandise!" He prepares to attack Pain, but Panic is sipping on a Hercules energy drink before noting Hades and says, "Are you thirsty?" in his little tiny voice. Yeah, and Hades' scream is so hilarious. It causes the mountaintop they're standing on to literally explode before Pain and Panic are scorched into the wall.
Not
Meg
to mention
laughs
the
at
face
Hades.
not to mention the face Hades makes when he screams. Like that's a face of pure unadulterated rage.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yep.
The reaction of the people at the base of the mountain too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely,
What was that?
definitely.
We're on
Yeah.
Pompeii, are we?
Classic. But basically, Hades then realized that he hasn't been throwing the right curves at Hercules and convinces Meg to help him find his weakness. He says that he needs someone who could manhandle him. Meg says that she's done with men, as Hades then tells her backstory of how she sold her soul to Hades to save her boyfriend's life, only for him to fall in love with another woman as soon as he came back to life, which probably was Hades doing, come to think of it. But anyway, Angron, you were saying?
Yeah, this is ultimately what I was referring to when I was talking about Megara's past with men and her love life kind of going astray because of that. Because this right here basically makes her play a bit more sympathetic in spite of her basically doing what she does. And it 100% makes her definitely an interesting character for it.
Easily.
Yep.
Let's see, Matt,
Matt?
you were saying?
I like how here you can tell that James Woods is changing from channeling his inner car salesman to probably some Hollywood producers he knew.
Oh
I could
my!
see that. I
Yeah.
definitely could see that. But
Also,
Sharvoun, you were saying, sorry.
if they given the track records of remakes, they're probably gonna exaggerate the backstory so much and try to make Meg more of a feminist than she needs.
But
Yeah,
it works.
It definitely works easily.
I'm
And-
just trying to make a joke of how Disney remakes are trying to overly feminize, make their female leads overly strong to the point
yeah,
of
No, I
being
feel like
bosses.
they do Meg pretty good. You know, they did a better job with her like than other ones. But basically,
Egg is like de facto.
easily. So what happens then is he tells her that she manages to find his weakness, he will grant her freedom from his servitude. We then cut to the Temple of Zeus, where Hercules is telling Zeus all about the various deeds he did and tells him that he's ready to join Mount Olympus. Zeus says that he's not ready, and Hercules is shocked, noting all the things he's done and the fame he's achieved, including, "I'm an action figure," which is a pretty good line with it making a little squeaky
Yeah.
noise. Zeus then tells him that he has to discover how to be a true hero by himself and to look inside of his heart. Hercules then pounds against the ground and weeps as Pegasus comforts him. We then cut to the next day where we see Hercules' villa with a tour chariot passing by before going to the gift shop to sell Hercules 30-minute workout scrolls, which, okay, cute joke right there. We then cut inside of the villa as Hercules is posing for a vase. Phil then talks about Hercules' other tasks include cleaning out the stables and stealing the girdle of the Amazons, which are both part of the 12 labors he had to do. Of course, in the myth, he had to do them after killing his wife and kids, so kind of a different place to do in the timeline here. We then get a cute little reference with Hercules wearing a lion skin that turns out to be Scar from the Lion King, which, two things. Number one, that implies that he was the Nemean lion from the myths, which is very interesting if they were going for that. And number two, this is a really cute Easter egg. I feel like if they were to do that now, people online would go like, "Disney shared universe confirmed." You know,
Yeah,
it's like,
probably.
it's not. It's
If-
just a stupid joke. You know,
But if-
Yeah.
But if
and
it
also
is, then,
kind of a yeah.
but if
and
it
also
is,
kind of a sorry, continue.
yeah. But if it is shared universe, then the hyenas definitely ate good that night. Also, you said vase. You mean vase. Didn't you hear the song?
On every boss.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good line. That is a
Those
great
hyenas
line right
definitely did not waste any time with Car.
there. Easily.
They did not.
So what happens next basically is that Hercules then rages what's the point of it all as the vase artist storms out, throwing his paint on Phil and causing him to look like a clown. Phil tells Hercules that he wants to get to Olympus and he can't give up, saying that Phil sees something in Hercules that he didn't see in all of the others. A bunch of Hercules fangirls arrives and begins grabbing at his things. Hercules asks Phil to get him out of there, as Phil says he saw Herc on the veranda, causing them all to run out. Meg then saunters in and finds Hercules behind a curtain. Meg then notes that this is what the great Hercules does on his day off as she reclines on the fainting couch. She then says that Hercules is the most popular being in all of Greece, as Hercules says that he gets mobbed everywhere. She says that he needs a break, convincing him to play hooky and relax for a bit. But Hercules, you can't do that. Mr. Krabs warned you about the hooks. But basically, we then cut to them at night as they talk about their day, going to a restaurant and seeing the play Opidius Rex, which is probably the most adult joke in Disney history, because that implies that a Disney protagonist saw a play where a man basically marries and consummates his love with his mother, then stabs his eyes out with golden shears, and that happens in this movie.
Well, damn. Also,
yeah, that's what Opidius Rex is about.
Yeah. I also like the little thing that they do here, where they like subtly hint in how Hercules ultimately earns his way into Olympus gradually. It starts with Megara, him ultimately having feelings for her, and her gradually getting feelings for him, and I won't spoil yet what that will mean for her going forward, but it definitely makes her a lot more interesting for it. Anyway, Sharvoun?
Yeah, go ahead.
Maybe, yes, that could be what they saw with Oedipus. Or maybe it was just a play about a giant octopus played by a boy named Ed that you could see for the Greek equivalent of a quarter.
That would have been better. That would have been way better.
Nice.
Yeah. But basically, what happens next then is that Hercules then skips some rocks in a pond before hitting a statue, making it the Venus de Milo. A pair of birds fly by them. Sorry, that was a little later. A pair of birds fly by them before landing in a bird bath, before revealing their pain and panic, and tell Meg what to find out what's going on before pretending to be normal birds. Meg pretends to faint on the step with Hercules grabbing her and putting her on a bench. She says it's from her weak ankles, then asks if he has any weaknesses while coming on to him. It's now where we get to the moment that I just mentioned, with Hercules making the Venus de Milo by hitting a statue with some rocks. A star shoots overhead, as Hercules notes how he would have originally given anything to be like everyone else. Meg then says that you want to be petty and dishonest, as he says that people aren't like that. He then notes that she isn't like that, as she asks how he knows what she's like. He calls her the most amazing person with weak ankles he knows, as she bumps into a statue of Eros. Not Cupid, because that was Roman. This is Eros. But anyway, Hercules then says that he doesn't feel alone with Meg, as she says it's better to be alone, as no one can hurt you. Hercules says that he would never hurt Meg, and Meg says that she doesn't want to hurt him. The pair then prepare to kiss before a spotlight comes on them, which turns out to be Phil riding on top of Pegasus. Phil then yells at them to break it up, as Meg says it's all her fault. Phil then storms away from her as Pegasus snorts at her, only for her to blow the candle on top of his head. Phil then tells Hercules that they're going to do double train to make up for this. Hercules then grabs an entire tree, bending it so he could pick up a flower, and gives it to her. She takes it as Hercules gets up on Pegasus, still facing her as they leave. Phil tries to get him to watch where he's going, but they smack into a tree branch, causing Phil to be launched away and collapses dazedly. And it's here we get to one of probably the last song in the movie, or at least the second to last song, that is really good. I Won't Say I'm in Love, which is the big love song. It's basically where Meg tries to ignore her feelings for Hercules, while the muses tell her to give in to how she really feels for him, which has a lot of cute little visuals, like with for example, the muses be all holding up like a pillar in that, and the Haunted Mansion reference definitely being a cute little one in that. The song then ends with her admitting she's in love with Hercules, and yeah, I like the song. It's probably one of the more underrated Disney love songs, with Susan Egon definitely doing a good job with it. Oh, go ahead, Angron.
Yeah, this definitely is believable, especially when you factor in "What Can I Do for You" by the very same person who played Rose Quartz from Steven Universe. Like, she definitely knows love songs, and here it's definitely a more unique love song, talking about her inner turmoil, talking about her past, talking about like her clear and present feelings despite her denying it. Like, Hands down, it's a very unique song, and I'm half tempted to say this one is my favorite, if not Zero to Hero, but yeah, that's just me.
Yeah, I can see why. Matt, you were saying?
For how heavily underrated this soundtrack is, I've noticed that each of us have a different song in this that's our favorite. That should tell you just how good the soundtrack is the whole way through. How is this not always brought up as one of Disney's better soundtracks?
I know, right?
Surprising, it really, really is. Ooh, Jordan, you were saying?
I've listened to the soundtrack, and I mean there are definitely great songs like the one we're going to get to the ending, all from Past Up to they're all great songs. But I think it's mostly like the background music. It's kind of like, okay, do we need to add this to the soundtrack? But it makes sense to the story. That's for my opinion, and for the fact that the voice actress for Megra has been through a lot. She's the Broadway of Belle in Beauty and the Beast live Broadway from back in the old times.
Nice.
Yeah, like I say, that shows how good she is at this number, basically. You know, she really, really does a great job with it. The song basically, yep. Hades then shows up, eagerly asking Meg if she knows what Hercules' weakness is, as she tells him to get lost. Hades at first thinks he misheard her, as she tells him to forget it. Hades then tells her that she's forgetting something before screaming that he owns her. However, here we get kind of the misunderstanding that happens in a lot of these movies with basically Phil wakes up and hears Meg telling Hades that she will serve him in every way, including defeating Hercules, before hearing the rest of it. Hades then tells Meg that she is giving away her freedom for one guy, as Meg says how he is honest and sweet. She then says that Hades can't beat him as he has no weaknesses, as Hades realizes that Hercules does have a weakness, her, and he sets her flower on fire. Oh, go ahead, Jordan.
This also kind of like everyone wanted to know, like, okay, who was Meg's love, like that dumped her? And in the Hercules cartoon series, it does make a whole lot of sense. But I will get to that point when we get to the end of this the whole point of the movie.
Okay.
All good, all good. So, basically, we then cut to Hercules training in the stadium as he continuously practices. Phil arrives, heartbroken, and tries to tell Hercules about Meg's true intentions, but Hercules won't listen. Pegasus, meanwhile, is distracted by a female Pegasus who, I think the best way to describe her is, I think a cross between Jessica Rabbit and Rarity from Friendship is Matching, and I'm pretty much halfway there.
I was going to say Twilight Sparkle, but that works too.
Yeah, true. The female Pegasus leads into the stables before splitting into two, revealing herself to be Pain and Panic. Phil, meanwhile, continues to try to explain to Hercules about what Meg is like, with Herc's Phil impression being really, really funny. He eventually yells that Meg is a fraud as Hercules refuses to believe him, eventually smacking Phil away into a pile of training equipment. Phil angrily leaves, remarking that he's basically going home, giving up on Hercules. Hercules says that he doesn't need Phil, as Phil says, "I thought you were the all-time champ, kid, not the all-time chump," as he sadly walks away.
Oof.
And here's where we finally, and this is interesting because it's the first time this happens, we finally get to see Hades directly interact with Hercules this far into the movie. He then shows up and attempts to introduce himself to Hercules before going to his sales pitch. Hercules tries to brush him off, and in a really cute moment, Hades gets really enraged for a second before regaining his composure, with Hercules not noting Hades setting himself on fire. Oh, go ahead, Angron.
Yeah, honestly, it's pretty interesting. Like, imagine if in the entire Superman movie, in like a Superman movie, you don't get to see Superman and Lex Luthor actually meet until like near the end. Like, and I'm not just talking about Batman versus Superman. I'm talking about like an actual like Superman movie that does this.
Yeah, I can see that. You know, definitely something that would have been interesting if they did that, to put it lightly. But basically, Hades then shows that he has Meg as a captive. She tries telling him it's all a trick, but her mouth is covered up with smoke. Oh, go ahead, Matt.
I think this one is my favorite line from Hades, which says a lot. Hey, I only got a second to do this, but don't worry, I'm a fast talker.
Yeah,
Nice.
that definitely was done just because of James Wood's performance, basically. Definitely. But what happens next is that Hades then tells Hercules to give us his powers for the next 24 hours and he'll let Meg go free. Hercules asks if people will get hurt as Hades dodges the question before saying, "Isn't Meg more important?" Hercules makes Hades swear that Meg will be safe from harm as Hades agrees and demands that he needs an answer right now. Hercules then shakes hands with Hades, which removes his strength, and one moment that really shows how good of a villain Hades is, when Hercules loses strength and collapses on the ground, Hades basically sneers at him and says, "That's how it feels like to be everybody else," which is such a good line. It really shows that Hades isn't just all ha-ha, jokey. He could really be menacing when he wants to be. I give him all the credit for that. Go ahead, Angron.
Yeah, like I said, he did not become the god of death over absolutely diddly squat. This was not a fluke. He is 100%. He 100% earned that title.
Yeah, definitely. It shows how good he is. And Pain and Panic basically taunting Hercules is such a good moment. And Hades then tells Meg that she earned her freedom, and then explains to Hercules that Meg worked for him the entire time. He then rides off in an infernal chariot before he goes to the Titans and frees them. I do like the Titans' design, how they're basically the four elements, but they're done in a really, really unique way as being basically manifestations of it. For example, the lava one being like a giant blob monster, the ice one being like a skeleton, the wind one being a tornado, and it really, really shows like how great designs they have, you know? Yeah, and also they basically all show their powers and go off to fight Zeus, and we get another really hilarious one with them storming off. Hades stops them and basically says, "Guys, Mount Olympus is that way." Zeus!
Praise
They all storm
him!
up. It's so silly and funny. Go ahead, Stryker.
I just want to point out, this is actually what Sharvoun was referencing earlier. The prison that the Titans were held in, that's Tartarus.
Oh, interesting. Right. That is exactly accurate.
Yep, you're welcome.
Wow, that is really great. Huh.
Nice.
But Hades then stops a Cyclops, telling him he has another job for him. We then cut to Mount Olympus as Hermes tells Zeus that the Titans are coming. All of the gods prepare for battle, and we get another fun little Fantasia reference here. The way that they show Zeus's lightning bolts being made is the exact same way. Literally, it's the exact same angle as the scene from Fantasia, where Zeus has his lightning bolts made to throw it at the centaurs during their courtship ceremony. That is a clever reference. I give him points for that. But,
Yeah.
of course, what happens is the gods all are ready for battle, but the Titans easily overpower them. Oh, go ahead, Angron.
Yeah, Blood of Zeus, a Netflix show that basically does the accuracy bit of Greece a little better, does something similar and shows the absolute brutality of like the Titans overpowering the gods, and it definitely 100% is the more brutal, albeit better version of this. But yeah, I still like this moment. It like shows the gods actively like trying to put up a fight, and yet they're ultimately curb stomped by the beings that they used to seal away a long time ago, and all because of Hades.
Yep. And of course, basically, we then cut to Thebes where the Cyclops is rampaging looking for Hercules. The Cyclops is played by Patrick Penny, who, you want to know what else he did? Are ya ready, kids?
Oh no!
No.
Yes, he
I
sang,
can hear you.
Captain. Yes, Patrick Penny sang the SpongeBob SquarePants theme song. I'd be just a painting of a head. Like, can you imagine
I'd just be a painting of a head?
be that much of a legend to where not only did you play a villain in a Disney movie, you sang probably the most iconic cartoon theme song of the last like 30 years, which, big thumbs up to Mr. Penny because, wow. The voice he does here is pretty interesting. It's kind of like a simpleton voice in that, and sadly, it's no Bill Fagerbaki in Hunchback of Notre Dame, but what can you do?
Yeah.
The Thebians are all hiding, waiting for Hercules. Meg says that without his strength, Hercules would be killed by the Cyclops, but he tells her it's what he must do. And I like that he does that. It shows that Hercules is still innately a good person. Even without powers, he's still going to try his best to try and fight this monster off. And I really like that they do that. Of course.
Hercules,
Sorry?
are you sure you want to take him on? You'd be pissing off your uncle if you did that.
He has no choice.
Yeah, definitely. But basically, Hercules stands before the Cyclops before it swats him away into a billboard. Megara runs up and frees Pegasus before telling him that Hercules is in trouble and they have to find Phil. We then cut to Pegasus flying off as he screams yet again, and the Titans finally make it to Mount Olympus and storm past the gates. Phil is getting ready to leave as Meg basically begs him to help Hercules and that Hercules will die otherwise. Zeus runs out of lightning bolts and screams that he needs more before Hermes says that everybody, himself included, has been captured. The Titans then all basically burst through and all surround themselves around Zeus as he finally realizes that Hades is behind all this, mostly because Hades shows up and gloats. We then come back to Hercules, who is badly damaged from the fight. Phil then tells him to get up and fight, but Hercules says that he cannot do it. The Cyclops then picks him up, but Hercules grabs a flaming torch and shoves it in the Cyclops' eye, which, clever reference. I give him credit. Clever reference to the Odyssey. Of course, how the Cyclops is beaten there was a little more violent than just a flaming torch, but the general thing is there. He then ties its sandal laces together, causing the Cyclops to fall off a cliff and killing him. However, a pillar nearly falls onto Hercules, but Meg saves him, which crushes her. But it turns out that, and this is so clever, since Meg got hurt, the deal is off. Hercules instantly regains his demigod strength.
Yeah,
Which, again,
that's
really, really clever filmmaking. I give him credit for that. Oh,
yeah, that's
go ahead,
very
Angron.
clever. Like subverting something by saying like making a deal that Megara wouldn't be hurt by anything, and yet this ultimately breaks that deal. Like you can't predict nature, or ultimately, you can't predict things like fate, or for that matter, just overall natural accidents happening.
Easily.
Or
Speaking of the
Hades
fates,
didn't-
we're getting to that part, but we all know what this part's going to happen.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yep.
Also, Hades didn't
Go ahead.
count on Meg. Hades didn't count on Meg being selfless.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Yep.
Nope, definitely. But what happens, of course, is that Meg tells Hercules to get Hades for him as he rides off on Pegasus going to Mount Olympus. Pain and Panic are forcing all of the other gods into chains into Mars, with Pain screaming, "I can't hear you," which should be the
Oh,
Cyclops'
gosh.
line, but oh well, whatever. Zeus says that when he gets out of there, he will get revenge before Hades relaxes on Zeus's throne. Hercules then frees all of the gods, who really don't do anything in the fight. Kind of a weak showing from the Greek pantheon in this movie, but oh well.
Accurate.
Zeus
Mhm.
says that basically, he startles Hades as he commands the Titans to attack Hercules. However, the Titans are so stupid they attack Hades before Hercules manages to free Zeus from his prison. Pegasus kicking Pain and Panic repeatedly while laughing is a cute moment, and Zeus finally gets his lightning bolts back and shoots them at the Titans. As they flee, Hades tells him to get back and fight before Pegasus shows up and blows his hair, which leads to the great line, "What, is my hair out?" Which, great line
Did my
right
hair
there.
go out?
Perfect. But Hercules then grabs all of the Titans, sucking the other three into the Wind Titan and hurling them all into space where they explode. Hades then says that he has a consolation prize, which is a friend who is dying to meet you. And we then cut to the Fates as they slice Meg's thread, killing her. Hercules and Phil then cry over her body, with the latter saying that there's things you can't change, before Hercules angrily says that he can. We then cut back to the underworld, where Hercules is raging about how he lost, how they were so close to the finish line but tripped at the last second. However, Hercules then bursts through the walls riding on Cerberus and demands that Hades let Meg go. Hades then leads Hercules to the river Styx, but is not playing Domo Arigato Mr. Roboto. He tells him that Meg is in there. Hercules then basically turns the tables on Hades, making a deal with him, telling the god of death to take him instead. Hades ponders over the deal, as I like how Hercules uses Hades' love of deals against him, going even so far as to use the same language he does. And I like that. I like that they made Hercules not just strong, but also clever. That is something that, again, I give him all the credit for that.
Yeah.
Basically,
Angron,
in
you
the
were saying?
lyrics, like when the muses sing "Zero to Hero," you basically see that he's more than just brawn. He's got brains and kindness, so that definitely shows it.
Yeah,
easily,
this is
easily.
honestly actually pretty one-to-one with Hercules in the mythos as well. He wasn't just all brawn, even though that was kind of part of his whole deal, but he also had a cleverness to him. He knew how to solve things, like burning the Hydra's heads before they could reform, using the blades of the freaking steel-feathered birds, like defeating a giant by lifting him up and strangling him because he couldn't be defeated while his feet were on the ground. Like, you get what I'm saying with this, right?
Yeah, easily. So what happens then is that Hades basically agrees to the deal, saying that if he can make it to Meg and get her out of the Well of Souls in time, he will let her live. However, Hercules then jumps into the river Styx as Hades says that you're going to be dead before you make it to her. As he swims to her in the river, he gets older and older before the fates prepare to cut his thread. However, as he rescues her, his godhood returns, making his thread uncuttable, and he then bursts out of the river Styx, basically glowing yellow with rage at this point. Hades tries to tell Hercules that it was all a misunderstanding before Hercules literally punches his face in a good moment. I do like how Hades is like panicking at this point, how he's desperately telling Hercules to take it easy, but Hercules punches Hades to the river Styx, where all the vengeful souls pull him down.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we do not get to hear Hades say, basically, time is but a window. I will be back. I guess he'll meet Imhotep down there too, because same thing happened to him in Mummy Returns.
Yeah.
Nice.
We then get a
I'm-
really cute. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I just love I also love the scream he makes when he realizes Hercules became a god. Like, I can't believe I was felled by a loophole. Like, it's a lawyer's worst night, being defeated by a loop.
Definitely. So what happens next basically is that Pain and Panic say he won't be happy if he gets out there. You mean if he gets out there? If is good, which is a really cute callback.
Mm-hmm.
Hercules then returns Meg's spirit to her body, bringing her back to life. A cloud chariot then appears, bringing him and Meg back to Mount Olympus. Hercules is then reunited with his parents and embraces them, as Zeus and Hera note that he is now a true hero, that basically now Hercules can return to the world of the gods. Meg says Hercules will make a great god as she begins to walk off. However, Hercules realizes that life, even immortal life, is not worth living without her, and he wants to live on Earth with her. Zeus agrees and basically returns Hercules back to his demigod form, and we then end with another final song, A Star is Born, which they obviously should have sang this version in The Star is Born with Lady Gaga instead of The Shallows. Would have been way better.
Probably.
I do like how Hercules here is still shown to be a hero and in love with Meg, as Pegasus and Phil accept her as well. Phil gets kissed by Aphrodite, which, okay, judging from her taste in men, definitely tracks. Zeus then makes a constellation of Hercules as Phil gets his wish with, it's Phil's boy, coming true as he gets teary-eyed. The movie
Full
then
circle,
ends with
baby.
Literal tears.
Yep. The movie ends with all of the muses leaping onto the vase of Hercules, and yeah, that's pretty much it. The Star is Born reprise continues throughout the credits, and pretty good movie overall. Hercules was a box office success and got good reviews. However, it wasn't as big of a hit as something like Aladdin or Lion King, surprisingly enough, which is kind of a shame because it is great, but maybe at the time, it's one of those things like I guess Marty McFly said, you might not get it, but your kids are going to love it.
Yeah,
One thing that
it's-
is interesting is where the movie was received badly was in Greece itself. The official
Ah.
minister of culture went so far as to call it, and this is a direct quote, another case of foreigners distorting our history and culture just to suit their capitalistic interests. Which, yeah, they did not like that movie.
visual eye roll from behind the screen.
Yeah. Oh, well. But yeah, Hercules, of course, being a 90s Disney movie, got a bunch of stuff, basically spin-offs with it. It, of course, got video games and the like. It got appearances in Kingdom Hearts. It got a TV spin-off, which was really, really fun. I remember watching the show more than the movie, believe it or not, because they did all kinds of Greek myths. They're one of those things, they had so many voice actors and they had big-name voice actors. It really, really was something else. And we almost got a direct-to-video Hercules sequel, which would have had Hercules in the Trojan War. Now, how they would have adapted that to be more child-friendly would have been interesting. Let's do it that way.
Okay,
Oh, go ahead, Matt.
Would have been a bit problematic.
Go ahead, Matt.
We actually did get a direct to VHS Hercules sequel. They kept advertising it a lot that it was an actual continuation of the Hercules movie. I remember getting this as a kid when it was brand new, and it was a clip show of the animated series. You have no idea how pissed off I was when they did that.
Boo.
Yeah, that's not
Boo.
great.
That is a shame.
Fire Nation!
Boo,
Nice.
boo. And of course,
Fire Nation!
Yep, we would be remiss if we do not discuss, at least for a few seconds, the live-action remake, which is going to be inspired by TikTok and directed by the Russo brothers.
Oh.
So you know it's going to be good. They made Electric State, and Electric State is amazing, isn't it?
I swear to God, if that doesn't at least die in the fire was
I
from.
hope it gets quietly canceled because I do not want to talk about it. And if it does get released, I hope they replace the Hydra with something else, like make it like another Titan or something. Anything. Please do not make us have to talk about a live-action Disney remake. We've avoided them all so far. We want to keep that streak.
If they do go through with it, I refer you to the famous clip of Hades screaming after Panic offers him a drink.
Yep. Perfect reaction. There couldn't be a better one than that.
2 years ago, so who knows?
Yep.
Indeed.
So, now it is time for the question of the week, which is going to be a unique one in that it's going to be, what is the most unique or interesting take on Greek mythology you have seen? I'll go first, and mine is probably going to be an interesting answer because it's the ones I've watched actually before this one, which were the Peplum movies of the 60s and that. These are movies that were mostly made in Italy and that, and some of them are really, really good, like Jason and the Argonauts and that. Some of them are really, really bad, like, of course, there's a lot to mention. Probably can't think of them, but the funny thing about the Peplum movies is they were all really the same in a way. I mean, some of them were better than others. Jason and the Argonauts is a stone cold classic, and will we talk about that in the podcast? We can only see. But yeah, basically, I will say this much is that what's funny about them, and we'll talk more about that when we do the Hercules versus the Hydra episode, is that it's funny that if you were a bodybuilder and you were working in Europe, you were going to play Hercules. Steve Reeves played Hercules. Mickey Haggerty played Hercules. Probably
Arnold
the most
Schwarzenegger.
Yep. And I was going to not mention the best part of it. Like all of the Italian Hercules movies, Arnold's voice was dubbed. So you have Arnold Schwarzenegger and you have the voice sounding like, "Father, I am tired of the same places, the same old things." And it's like, you can clearly tell that is not Arnold's voice at all. Like, I imagine audience of the 60s didn't know who he was, but watching it now is hilarious that they have this big, traumatic like voice for him. What's even funnier is that they re-released the movie and they put back Arnold's original voice track. And let's say he was not ready to be an actor in like 1968, I think it was. He was not ready for acting because, yeah, it's hard to understand him here. But yeah, that's going to be my answer. Kind of a, I guess, a disappointing one. But yeah, the Peplum movies, which I think are probably best described as Sunday afternoon movies, with the exception of Jason the Argonauts better, because that is amazing. That is like a stone cold classic, and maybe we'll talk about it on the podcast, hint, hint. but that's gonna be my choice. Angron, what would your one be?
Okay, firstly, like it's such a missed opportunity that they didn't have him do his actual Arnold-esque voice. Be like, "Father, I am tired of living amongst the gods. I wish to go down and experience what mortals do." It's like such a missed opportunity. Firstly, secondly, oh good lordy, I have said this numerous times throughout, but easily one of, if not my favorite creature, aside from the Hydra and the Greek dragon in the form of Harmonia and Cadmus. Good lordy, that is that is the closest thing Greeks will ever get to a happy ending in that regard. It's going to absolutely be the Minotaur. Like, I absolutely love them as a concept. Half man, half bull. They're pretty much anthro bulls, in my opinion, and it honestly tickles me something fancy. There's so much you can do with that, and there are a few pieces of media that do this, in fact. Like, one of which was a film called Icarus, which in its native country was Icarus y the Minotaurus. I forget the actual Spanish thing. It's a recent film, and it basically tells the tale of Icarus, but with a bit of a catch. Like, here, Icarus actually gets to meet the Minotaur firsthand, and he and him actually become friends, and there's this whole development that I really, really love, and I very much enjoyed. It actually made me kind of sad at the end when something happens that I am not going to tell, which, I mean, if you've read the myth, you know what happens, but come on, this absolutely was one of my favorite bits. But for in general, we'll have to go with D&D's take on Minotaurs. Like, making them not just, actual, like half man, half bull sort of things, but making them their actual race. Like, good lordy, the things they do with the Minotaur here is amazing. They've got their own race, their own culture, their own age, lifespan, size, speed, that sort of thing. Like, they do a lot with them, and it's honestly pretty interesting what you can do. You can make one a bard, you can make one a ranger, you can make one just your basic bitch fighter. Like, there's so much you can do, and to that end, you can also utilize other types of bovine creatures like oxes, water buffaloes, like that sort of thing with them, and it just makes it all the more unique for that. It's not specifically Greek, but yeah, I very much want to say D&D does the Minotaurs best in my opinion, because you have control and you can make whatever you want with them. And as a brief honorable mention before I cap it off, I have to give credit to Camille from Crapopolis. Yeah, not a fan of what the creator is doing in terms of IRL stuff, but 100% that episode of Crapopolis definitely won me over with how they did Camille the Hydra, and I can't wait to talk about her when we get to that episode.
Yep, we'll discuss her. And I haven't seen the Icario movie. I want to see it because I've heard great things about it. And yeah, the way you sound, I definitely want to check it out sometime soon because it sounds really, really great. That is really a good one. So let's see who'd be next. Math, what would your be?
So I'm going to go with an interesting one that isn't just purely about the Greek pantheon, but actually it's the largest player in this thing.
Oh,
Record
boy.
of Ragnarok.
Oh shit, that's actually awesome.
Okay, so this series is all the gods from all pantheons that have ever existed are real. They've said, fuck it, we're done with humanity. They're trash, we're going to destroy the world. And the Valkyries say, no, we're going to give them a chance to prove themselves that they should survive. So it's 13 deceased humans versus 13 gods. Best of 13 wins. That determines the fate of the world. And the Greek gods, namely Zeus, are the heads in charge of the entirety of all pantheons. You've got Zeus, you've got Poseidon, you've got Hercules, you've got the whole shebang here. Hercules versus Jack the Ripper is actually considered
Yeah.
probably the best fight in the series so far. And
Huh.
it was really, really fun fight to watch, and how their different characteristics and styles play out in these. You even see Hercules' attacks are based on the trials.
That sounds interesting. Not
Wow.
gonna
And
lie.
it's a series that's on Netflix right now, probably streaming in other places as well. It just got announced that season 3 is coming out this year, and it's going to start with, hey, this lines up with us perfectly, Hades versus Qing Shi Huang, the first
Okay.
emperor of Qing China.
Wow.
Okay then.
That is awesome. Wow.
I was already
That right
planning on
there,
getting the
I
manga.
gotta check this out. That sounds like right up my alley in a way. Wow.
It is stupid. It is overblown. It is insane. It is some of the most brain dead fun you will ever have with a series.
I'll bet.
Wow.
I was
So,
already planning
yeah.
on getting the manga, so
Yep. Wow.
yeah.
That is something I definitely want to check right there. So, anyway, let's see. Stryker, what would your choice be?
mine is a bit of a different pick, actually. Mine would be the 2005 PlayStation 2 game God of War.
I was wondering when someone was gonna reference that.
Yep.
It, after our Hercules, this was the game that really got me into Greek mythos. And just God of War 3, when I first played that on like the older version of PlayStation Now, yeah, that just settled it. I was like, yeah, I'm very interested in Greek mythos now. Only to find out that Kratos wasn't even a demigod though in
Yeah.
actual myth.
Yeah.
Shush, shush, shush.
But still, it's a fucking epic game, and I wish I could play more of it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. It really is it's a great experience there.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So, that's a great choice. Let's see. Jordan, what would your pick be?
I would go for the God of War because that's definitely into the Greeks, but I kind of want to go for Hercules and the legendary adventure that he went through.
Oh.
The TV show.
Ooh.
It does talk about how the Greek gods were kind of like, lazy, like as Hades pointed out, like, oh yeah, they lounge about, don't do anything. And it points out, yeah, they do. The Greek gods were definitely lazy because they're like, we don't care about your whininess, so let's have someone else do it. And Hercules steps in and does all the heroing, like what he does in the real kind of way of what he does. The lion and all the other stuff. And it shows in the cartoon that he had to do all those chores that was point out true. So I'm like, I kind of go with the Hercules legendary journey.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's what got me into it before God of War, but
Nice.
Yep.
So what was it again? A game or a series?
Oh
It was
no,
the
God of
series.
War.
No.
Hercules Legendary Journeys.
Yeah,
It
it
was
has
the series.
Kevin Sobro
Sorbo
in it.
before he went crazy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. There's also a Nintendo
yeah,
64
the-
game. There was also a Nintendo 64 game that Rerez covered.
Huh, nice.
I've heard of that. I've seen JonTron cover it. It's definitely interesting.
Yep. Let's see. Matt, you were saying?
My favorite part of that series, disappointed.
Classic. So yeah, that's another really good choice right there. So basically, let's see who's next. Let's see our guest, Sharvoun. What would your pick be?
It would definitely be the segment from Fantasia of the centaurs and the cupids and the
The Emperor.
Pegasus. Yes, and who's actually supposed to be Dionysus. Hold on. Sorry, I had to sneeze. Anyways,
All good.
I love Fantasia. It's my favorite. It's one of my favorite movies of all time, as well as maybe my favorite animated movie. And I'm also a huge Beethoven fan. The Pastoral Symphony. I just had to look it up. The animation is breathtaking. It's colorful. It's bright. It has a lot of interesting artistic choices, considering Disney.
Yep.
It's really, really beautiful.
It's
you know?
it's just one of the most. I'm a huge fan of. A huge Beethoven fan, and somehow this just fits so beautifully, so perfectly, so elegantly. It's as long as you don't see the original version, it does have some stuff that did not age well.
Yeah,
I've seen the original. It's all right.
Yeah, but like I said, Fantasia is my favorite animated movie of all time, like period. And Pastoral Symphony is one of them because it's just so beautiful. It's like absolutely like gorgeous. It's nothing that like has ever been done before, and I don't think since, to be honest. Like there are other animated movies that are they better, maybe, but there's nothing for me that could top Fantasia. So that is a great choice there. Pastoral Symphony is amazing. It is like so beautiful, and I really enjoy it. Like that is a great choice right there.
Definitely. Oh, interesting fact. I don't know if this is confirmed or not, but Dionysus in that is nearly 1-to-1 with Dr. Elephant from Astro Boy, which put them side by side, and you definitely see the resemblance.
Also, basically, Bacchus, the god of wine, he's literally the same he is in Hercules as he is here.
Hmm.
Yep. So,
Nice.
Yep, definitely interesting thing. And that is a great series of choices all around. Now it is time for the patent pending Dragoness Scale, where we rank the Hydra. For me, this is going to be interesting because number one, she looks pretty good for 1997. Some of it hasn't aged well, but at the same time, it still is really an impressive feat. And I like the gave her character. She's definitely one of the standout action set pieces of the movie, probably even more than the Cyclops fight later on. Which makes me wonder if they should have kept the Hydra for later, like to have her be the last big bad that Hercules had to fight before basically getting his godhood back. That would have been interesting, but regardless, I think she's great design, great characteristics and everything like that. I'm going to go with an 8. I can't go higher than that because I feel like maybe if she was voiced or if she had like some kind of a more in the story, shall we say, I'd give her a higher score, but 8 out of 10 is not bad at all because, again, I really like what they did with her. Great design, great personality, great animation, especially for the time. And, again, one of probably the best depictions of the Hydra in cinema, period. Angron?
Yeah, I am going to give her a 7 out of 10 as well. Like, for an obstacle, she definitely serves her purpose. She put Herc on the ropes and definitely throws him to the wolves, as it were. Though, yeah, she does have a little bit of character, but not too much, I would say. Like, if she had a bit more character and a little bit more time to, be flushed out a little bit, I would give her a little higher. But as is, she looks nice. She's definitely a threat. And, yeah, the battle that she takes part in is phenomenal to look at. So, yeah, I'm going to give her a 7 out of 10.
Nice. That's a great choice right there. Let's see. Math, what would your choice be?
I'm going with a pretty high score like you guys too. So visually, she's 5 out of 5. There's no question there. Her design is fantastic. She is amazing. You say that this took 18 months? I can believe it because this is some of the best holding up CG from this era I have ever seen.
Definitely.
And the part that really helps sell it, and you'd think that coming into this would actually be like the prototypical character for my giant monster shtick, but no, because they spent so much time animating her and going every little detail with her, you actually do glean personality from her. Her expressions, her facial features, her looks, her reactions. You actually see a character in there. And this is what I keep demanding when I see all of these giant monsters, and this is why I keep complaining about it, because you can do this shit. So because they actually gave her a personality with the amazing designs, she's an 8.
Exactly.
Yep. You took the words right out of my mouth there. That really, really just shows how great she is. Let's see. Stryker?
I think I'll go with a 9.
Nice.
Really, really. Oh my gosh, I have a bit of a story for this, but I'll just say, like, yeah, this scene used to freak me out as a kid. But nowadays I can't help but just be amazed by the animation and just the design. Holy shit, it's so good.
Definitely.
Yeah, easily. Yeah, I definitely have to admit that it really, really is well done, especially with the design and that. So let's see who's next. All right, Jordan also gave the Hydra a 9 out of 10, and I could definitely see why. She says that she says here that basically, hold on, let me just get this up. Sorry about that, folks. She basically that she likes the ending, basically, and with the shadow and the rain, it makes it look so dark and imposing. And I definitely could see that. It really, really does look well. You know, it was probably done to hide the CG, and that's something that always does work. You know, it's kind of like Jurassic Park in that way. And let's see, our special guest Sharvoun. What would you give her?
I'm gonna give the Hydra a 9 out of 10.
Dang.
Nice.
This is a very. I love the design of this thing, although I will admit what does keep it from a 10 out of 10 for me is it's weird that it only has 2 legs. Look back, it only has 2 legs, but anyways,
Makes sense.
but aside from that, it looks great. It's really intimidating. Like you said, it has a lot of personality, and the fight scene from a technical and animation level, it's just spectacular. It's just a marvel to behold. I guarantee you, while this fight was going on, I was just smiling ear to ear. Like this was just one hell of a big fight, and the way Herc defeats her as well. It's one of the most clever things you can ever do to defeat a monster that you can't, do the head slicing thing. So that's a 9 out of 10 for me.
Nice. Yeah. Like I say, overall, really, really high score. I could easily see why. She's one of the iconic Disney villains, monsters rather. She's made appearances in other stuff too, like House of Mouse, and yep, really good to see her. So that'll be it for this episode, which is our longest one yet as of now. We'll have to see if we beat it with some other stuff later on, but we'll have to see. If you have any questions, or if you want to hear us gush about Hades some more, feel free to email us at fiorydiscourse@outlook.com. Visit us on Twitter at twitter.com/fiorydiscourse. Visit us at Blue Sky at Blue Sky Fiery Discourse. Be sure to subscribe to the Fiery Discourse YouTube channel. Subscribe to the playlist. Like the video. Any and all comments are appreciated. Also, one of our co-hosts, Lucky Evie, is looking to move to a group home in the UK. A link for that will also be in the description. Next week, we're going to be talking about the 2005 Zowlin Showdown episode, Oil in the Family. Sadly, there will probably be no meatheads nor Archie Bunker raspberries in this one, but it'll be a fun time regardless. Yep. So that'll be it. And until then, thank you all so much for watching and take care.
Bye-bye. What a hair.
Adios
Peace out.
and see you all next week.